Welcome to Democratic National Working Group, where we discuss issues that matter. And today we have got an important topic, foreign aid and national sovereignty. This is a topic that is quite interesting to discuss, as the people with money, the United States, are coming to Africa, wanting to exchange money for our medical data. So with me today, we have got Dr. Andy, and me, I'm your host, Meja. We shall be joined by other contributors as well. Shumba is just coming in. So, Vadare, welcome. Shumba, Murisei.
Zvirisei.
Ndizvo aitisitere nhasi tine musoro wenyaya watinawo uyo wekuti aid and our sovereignty. The background is the fact that our government refused the aid from America in exchange for our health data for our people. With us is Dr. Andy. So tokuda kuti tivhuye kuti vakagona here kana kuti vakatadza nekuramba aid. We know kuti Kenya yakabva yaramba, and uye Nigeria asati aziva kuti vacharamba here kana kuti vachadii.
Makadii Shumba?
Tiri nani, zvirisei?
Zviri nani.
Good.
Tabva tatsikwa naMamoyo Special. Mamoyo Special is one of our leaders in the democratic space. I will just give you a background to our discussion today. Mamoyo, we are talking about foreign aid and sovereignty. The background being kuti hurumende yedu yakapuwa an offer yekuti ipiwe aid 35 million in exchange of making available our medical data to America for research and medical advancement. Hurumende yedu yakaramba. Saka the question we are asking is, vakagona here kana kuti vakatadza? Saka we'll go around the house and see what do we think. Ndogona kuda kutanga na Dr. Andy. What's your view?
Thank you very much, Ramija. It's not the issue actually is not a very simple one. Nekuti let's start off by issue and need iripo munyika. Ma statistics anani chimbotarisa anotaura nyaya kuti iyo Zimbabwe lost quite a lot of healthcare professionals. Tingati all the way kutanga 2009 being driven by issue yekuti munyika manga musisagarike. As far as those professionals are concerned, they were not getting mari yanga ichikwanisa kuti vakwanise kuchengeta mhuri dzavo. They could not even do having a basic lifestyle yemunhu akadzidza chida yanga yakunetsa. Zvekuti the situation became so difficult. Zvekuti we ended up having a situation here yekuti we had 1.6 physicians for every 10,000 people. Iko kuchinzi, we must have at least one physician per 1,000. Saka, it's a drastic under representation in terms of kuva nema doctors akakwana nevanhu vakadaro vakakwana ma physicians. Saka zvinoreva kuti nemamwe matauriro we find ourselves in a place where the need is great and increasing. We have had my issues ekuti muzvipatara zvedu hamuna kana mishonga zvekutoti even zvinhu zvakaita kunge paracetamol unogona kuishaya, vanhu vanokufa nemadiseases anogona kuti varapike nawo because we are facing these challenges. There have been a number of reasons advanced as to why that situation is existing. Perhaps we may not exactly dwell on the causes, but the reality is we have a lot of need, an unmet need, and from the healthcare perspective. You know, given that situation, yekuti vanhu vedu vari kufa kana kuti vana vamwe vari kuzvarwa and they are not making it into the maternity issues, we can't even provide that basic care. Tadaro, then poita vamwe vanhu vanouyavo vachiti isusu tanzwa kuti muri kunetseka, tine mari yatinayo yatikuda kungupai yamunogona kushandisa kuti vanhu venyu vapone. Tinogona kukupai 350 million US, which we have. Chatiri kuda chete kwamuri toda kutora mazita nemamwe mastatistics atiri kuda kuti vanhu venyu vazokwanisa kurapika. I think kuti on the face of it, kana zvadaro izvozvo taane question yekuti vanhu vanofa here nekuti toda kuchengetedza data and to kuchengetedza certain things that we hold important. Kana kuti totora mari togadzira maclinic, togadzira mahospital, toita kuti vanhu vawane even mabeds, because ndakamboona imwe video yanga ine mibhedha yanga isitorina yanga munhu anga akarara pamaspring. Saka the question is, what value do we attach to that data over the death or health of our own people? That's really the question. Pane zvimwe zvekuti when we are looking at it, vanhu vamwe chete ivavo vatinoti tinofanira kuprotecta data ravo. If you are looking on ma-free sites akaita kunge zvichida ana YouTube nana Facebook, the same people are selling that data for nothing. Hamusati mamboona kuti sometimes vanhu vanongonzi fill in your information apa vangofill in vasingawane anything anywhere. And sometimes the people are using their own images and don't upload your face. Could choose an animated version of it. Varukupa even my face avo mahara. Pasina chiri kuwanika. Zvinoti kuti information yavari kupa mahara iyoyo ndo iri kudiwa kuti vanhu vazowanawo good health care. Zvingati kugona here kana tiri kuramba kutora zvinogona kupuhwa tichi trade off zvinhu zvokuti vanhu they are using it for free anyway. Ndo pane nyaya yangu, we understand nyaya yedata, but we in terms of valuing life over data protection, because dzimwe nguva tinogona kunge tiri taken by ma-concerns ari a higher order need. Munoziva kuti kana munhu akaguta anogona kuti chakati handidyi nekuti akaguta, but kana munhu aine nzara kunyange mukabika hwiza iye achiyera hwiza anongodya hwiza idzodzo. Saka ndikuti ndikanzwawe pane chidzo achiti handidye hwiza nekuti iye mufiriji make mune nyama ndomuteedzera ndinogona kuzostava inini. Saka ndofanira kutarisa kuti pandiri nemamwe nezviri kuitika panext door zvinoenderana here. Kana zvichienderana then we can all say aiwa hatidye hwiza kana hatidye matasha nekuti tine zvimwe zvekudya. Ndo pane nyaya yangu ndofunga kuti is a starting off place for this discussion.
Maita basa Chiremba. Shumba. Wakapfumba muromo Shumba.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, the background noise iri kubva kupi.
Mira ndi kuno kwenene.
Yeah. So yeah, ndanzwa zvataura mukoma endi kuti sometimes kana vanhu vatori musituation yovari, it's very difficult then now to say we are maintaining sovereignty. I think the starting point should be, before you even we should be, if the political, I could say political economy, if it was fully defined, as a nation, what's our direction, where are we coming from, and where are we going? The problem are particularly with my half measures, and I've seen those half measures just playing out not only panyaya data yetakutaura zvakatangira kunana COVID, zvakatangira kunana HIV chaiko, right? We have always outsourced our problems to other people. Tine beggar mentality yekuti we always wanting the other to help us without first looking, do we have the resources? Are we utilizing our resources enough to meet our needs? I could say the mari yacho ipamwe iri kutodonetwa from outside. It's nothing else compared to the money that's leaving Zimbabwe, being externalized to foreign banks, to kunana Dubai, kunana Switzerland, or wherever. We are losing a lot of money leaving the country, and it's actually the continent as a whole. This is a problem for the whole continent. And then when these little pittance are given to us in terms of aid, we think we are being treated with favor when we actually being compromised. So the people who come up with the definition of sovereignty, to me, it doesn't make sense when you haven't really given the country the direction. We are coming from this, we ought to come from this point to this point. And there are a lot of sacrifices you are supposed to do along the way. And as well, the institutions should be working very well to stop that leakage, inoitika yetinoona yekuti we are witnessing, all of us, kuti mari iri kungobuda ichienda mune zvinhu zvisiri, we are prioritizing things that don't matter. So as a result, some of our people, some of these people outside, they are not well-meaning. Let's be frank. They are not well-meaning. All they want is control. So what you find is, when we talk of the value of that data, it's a form of control. So first of all, you need to know who is going to benefit. I think if you look at the company called Palantir, which most doctors here in the UK were up in arms against, because they also got a contract to access patients' data in the UK. This is a company which is working hand in hand with the CIA in America. The CIA actually invested money into Palantir. And go and look at the CEO of Palantir when he's talking. He's very, can I say, explicit in his words. He say, our job is to maintain the Western hegemony. And we can do that by killing our enemies. He's so explicit in that regard. So what does it mean when you see those kind of words and that kind of mentality? What does it mean for us? And then you start looking at the people who are funding. Like I said, Palantir, look at the CEO and look at the backers. You're looking at people like Peter Thiel, one of the founders of PayPal. Go and find out the mentality of those people. Go and find out the mentality of Elon Musk, right? When you see Elon Musk on Twitter, he's always saying the West is in decline, there's a decline in birth rate. He doesn't consider that Africa, we are having, actually our birth rate is very high. So you just say, is he considering us as people when he's saying the world is gonna be short of people. So to us, we are not the right people. Yet when you look at these demographics and statistics, they say by 2050, 1 in every person walking the earth will be African. So to them, it's very scary. So this is why I'm so concerned about this data. Because for me, I was actually writing an article yesterday to say it's actually a way to cull Africans, to reduce the number of Africans. AIDS didn't achieve that. COVID was supposed to achieve that, it didn't. So they're gonna find a way. Through this healthy data, they know our vulnerabilities. And they can engineer things to cut down on our populations. Because we are watching now Iran, them having a go at Iran. I'll tell you, the next port of call is Africa. If they subdue Iran, I can actually map it out that the next port of call is going to be the Sahel. They're going to attack the Sahel. And Africa is going to be the battleground of all this fight. And imagine the movement of people across the number of people that we're gonna lose. And that's when they can introduce all sorts of diseases and all sorts of shenanigans within our populations. So those are the things. When we talk of sovereignty, we should define what it is. Sovereignty first means you should have national security as a nation, which is intact. And national security comes in securing your data. It comes with securing your internet. That's why I was very against Starlink. But I realized, like what Dr. Andy is saying, there's need for people to go online. We have not invested in that infrastructure, because the government could have actually invested in Strive Masiwa to provide that service. We see it, this is the role model across the world. America does it, the UK does it. If you see, the biggest investor in BP Shell is the UK government. The pensions, the government actually pushes the pension and the other companies to say, you need to invest in BP Shell. So what I don't understand with our system, we only talk sovereignty like Pamuromo Cheti, but our actions deny that we are empowering our nation to be self-sustaining going forward. Because right now, when Strive with the Econet came into power, it should have taken over the whole African market by now, with that government backing. That's why when you see Trump going to China, you see Starmer, UK, going to China. He's taking a delegation, business delegation. And when Starmer went to China recently, one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies, is it AstraZeneca? They got this massive deal in China worth billions and billions. So this is the same that the Zimbabwean government, when they talk about sovereignty, you're taking along Strive Masiwa, let's go. You open up Africa for him. You invest in Zimbabwe's pensions in there, and all the money is flowing to Harare, but it seems to escape most of the people in power.
Can I come in a bit there as well, Amisha?
Yeah, you can come in.
Yes.
Then it's quite an interesting debate, and I think from what Shumba is just alluding, the data is quite important. We may look at it on the surface, but what they want to get from that data, it's like, as he said, if they want to control, they will know where are your vulnerability, and they can then take advantage of that. Okay, come in.
Yes. I agree, Nashumba Kuti. It may be that my intentions, Evano, they are not clear. At the moment, yes, of course, we can speculate, Kuti, that data can be used in a malicious way, kana kuti in some sort of nefarious way, and that is true. Zvinogona kuitika. The other thing that I agree with you, Shumba, ndeyekuti you are saying kuti there has not been any investment inokwanisa kuti tikwanise kuva robust enough to be in a place to refuse these offers without suffering. Issue yekuti dai tatora taizogona kudai. One of the proverbs which we grew up hearing is that mwana akaguta haakwate. Mubereki, a good parent does not punish their child for eating next door when that child is hungry. Chiri kuita kuti mwana ade kudya chikafu chepa next door chii? Ndomubvunza wamabvunza Shumba wakakura iwo. Why is it that there is the gap in provision? That is our biggest problem. Now we're at a place where we are saying, perhaps enforcing nyaya kuti we are sovereign. Zvakafanana kuti aiwa isusu tiri ana soko hatikwate. But toti tiri ana soko hatikwate asi vana vedu vane nzara. Ndo pane problem ipapa nekuti we are now at a place where we really have to decide more or less on a matter of life and death.
Exactly.
If we have our relatives going into these hospitals and they are going in there, and even if you hear kuti sekuru vaenda ku hospital and there's no medication there, unogona kuchizofunga one day kuti is it possible kuti dai takangoti even vari kuuya vaine sort of questionable intent toapa here data racho kuti sekuru vapore, nekuti chatiri kuda sekuru kuti vange varipo regardless of the intention yekuti aiwa data redu ichashandiswa and these people may use that nefariously or in a way that is not what we have agreed, which is true. There is a potential. But are we now not in a place where we are looking at it and saying, are the lives of our citizens not more important than the issue of us being able to control our own data?
I think another question that need to be answered as well is even if vanhu ivava vakatambira mari iyoyo in exchange of data, what guarantee do we have that they are going to use that money for the betterment of our people? Because track record yevanhu ava tinoziva kuti imari dzinogona kuzongoenda muhomwe dzevamwe vanenge tozongoona vaakufamba nemabentley vaakuti isusu tine mari. What guarantee is there vanhu ivava vakatambidzwa mari iyoyo?
Yeah, I think that's where I slightly differ na Mkoma and Kuti. We need to define. I understand what he's saying. Sekuru wapinda mu hospital and then that paracetamol is not there. But you see, the thing is, what we are doing is not sustainable. Because sekuru ari kuuya wonzi tapuwa 350 million totenga paracetamol. Tomboti yatengwa paracetamol yacho. And then inopera, Maria yapera. Your data is gone. Maria pera. Sekuru acharwara futi 10 years down the line. Akusisina manje paracetamol hospital kuya. So we're going around in circles because we have not really defined what sovereignty is. Sovereignty comes with the art of statecraft. How do we intend to build institutions that last? How do we intend to build a government for the people? This is why I'm against this. When people talk of democracy, it's just a byword. When we talk of, what we as Zimbabweans should understand, there are different political systems out there in the world. There are monarchs, there are one-party states, there are two-party states, They are uni-parties. I would say most of the West is uni-parties, what we call uni-parties. They are almost a hybrid of one party and two-party system. Because if you go to America, you're gonna hardly start a political party and win. Elon Musk with his billions, he tried it, he failed. Why? It's because you've got these two parties, they control everything. And when they meet in Washington, those people, they talk the same language. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans. When they look at an enemy like Iran, nobody's going to say, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. This is what we call statecraft. You, collectively as a nation, you're determining what your interests are and what your needs are. This is what we fail as a nation. Because we want to do half measures. Or internet, let's bring in Starlink. Starlink is not even an internet system, it's a military system. The first time they wanted to do my uprising to Iran, they were shipping my Starlink after Iran shut down the internet. Fortunately, Iran found those Starlinks and disposed them off. So those are, if you look at the Russian-Ukraine war, they were using that for geolocation. Russian military infrastructure and all that stuff. So it's actually more of a weapon than anything else. And yesterday, to add on to that, before, if you look, there's an AI company called Anthropic, right? It has got its terms of service and everything. Yesterday, it got into a fight now with the guy who was responsible for the Department of War in America, Peter Hesketh, because Anthropic said, no, we don't abide by what you want to do with our product. And now they are having, and Peter Hesketh eventually said, if you don't do what we want, we're gonna label you a threat to the American government. Imagine telling your own company. This is when we talk of political economy, is the government have got the overall control. You may say whatever you want, but the government have got the overall authority over everything. So it's the government that is supposed to set out the direction of travel. Is the one that is supposed to set out the institutions, how institutions should run. Is the government that is supposed to set out the business environment and things like that. That's what we call political economy. But now we neglect most of those things and we think we can beg our way out of problems. No, it doesn't work like that.
And so how do we move in this direction? We are talking quite a lot of building institutions and everything. Whilst even our government is just bogged down in trying to amend the constitution.
Sorry, can I come in also in this?
Yeah, go on.
You've mentioned quite a few interesting things, Rashumba. And that even the equipment that Nofunga Gungoti is just equipment for communication can be useful in the wrong hands. As a military equipment, and I think one of that was highlighted even Munom in the UK, where the government was taken to task for allowing Chinese companies to come in and set up. And in fact, there was a big hoo-ha about it because they were going to get my contracts. They could provide, that cellular capability. And there was a concern here, information each other told what they'll be able to take. And there was also an issue here, that great big embassy they want to build. And actually, it's so close to sensitive national and military. Yes. And also, I mean, there was a situation yakazoonekwa yekuti that building that they donated, which literally the Chinese donated to Ethiopia, that African Union building, where they were tapping conversations and downloading information. Every night, 3 in the morning, their servers would be busy downloading all the information of what has happened in the day. Saka, it's important to assure kuti tizive kuti even things that look like they are just altruistic zvakangonaka, that they could be an angle, you know, gonna kushandiswa nemuvengi. We notice kuti even though we have these conversations about American interest, there's also Chinese influence in Africa, where almost everything is from China now, and that technology comes at a huge cost. Vachiti tikuda data renyu tokupai something, vachori nani pane vari kutotora kudhara machinese, vari kutora data iroro vari kutoshandisa kare mahara futi zvekutoti. And I think
this is where when we define sovereignty, you're talking about understanding what a state is, what is statecraft, and each nation acts in its best interest. Spying for each other. Even our kings, they were doing it. It's an old profession. Mambo aripa mirapo na mambo aripa mirapo. He needs to know his enemy. Kana kuti mambo yeye kuti is anenga chudzwa nenhume dzake kuti mambo aripa mirapo is growing bigger and stronger. So you always need to be on your foot to innovate, so that mangwana ukamuka ukarivara mangwana unongoona mambo yasvika kuti achamari I'm taking over. This has been, it's the story of the human race, if I can say. So this spying in geopolitics, I always say there's no friends. Zvokufunga kuti ma-Chinese are our friends, ma-Russians are our friends. Forget it. You act in your own best interests. Zvemuri kutaura izvozvo zvebugging Ethiopian that African Union head office, the West pusha that narrative because they want China out of Africa. They want to portray that picture of China doing that. But you are what they are doing. WikiLeaks showed us what they were doing in Africa. And then the time I lived in Australia, there was one guy who used to work for the Australian spy agents. Akangoenda rogue, and then he revealed kuti pane this province yakafighter with the Australia and the Western world urged it to fight for independence or secession from Indonesia. I think it's called the Archer.
Okay.
So they moved from Indonesia and declared an independent state. They are very rich in oil, but they were pushed by the West, especially Australia. And then after that, Australia offered to build them an embassy. And then they bugged that embassy. That government actually was taking Australia to the UN, because when they were in their parliament debating on my contracts, a wife and Okuita issue, Australia was already listening. And they had an upper hand kuti vanhu vari kuresist and wanani, and then sometimes blackmail those MPs and all that until they got the deal. And pakazobuda kuti the parliament was bugged. That's when they took the case to the UN, but it will be too late. These countries are powerful generally. So this is what we are talking when we talk of national sovereignty. It covers all angles. You have to look, who are you exposing your health data to? Who are you exposing even your food security strategy and everything to? Who are you involving in your satellite and everything, and your data connections, your fiber networks and stuff? This is why Memuchitaura about China with the embassy in London. You must remember as well, there was Huawei. they had to rip out all the Huawei infrastructure for America and here in the UK because of those fears. Maybe China will gonna impede its back doors into that communication infrastructure, and everything we are doing here is being listened to in Beijing. So it's the game that is played in the spy world, unfortunately, and we need to learn how to do it as well.
Saka mubvunzo wacho uripo ndewekuti iwo, can we ever be truly sovereign and independent without investment or without money? Because the reality is, zvatinenge tikuita agree ipapa ndezvekuti in order for us to be truly protected, we must have our own homegrown technology, so that we are not reliant on others to come and give us that technology. Because if we are getting it from all these other countries, whether it's China, America, or whoever, Australia, these ones will always be putting themselves as number one, their best interests. Saka nyaya kubhagwa iyoyo haipere, and also that monitoring iyoyo inoramba iripo. They will always have that upper hand because they are providing us with the equipment. And isusu saka kana tisiri kuda kuisa mari pasticken, tisiri kuda kuita make those painful decisions dzekuti right, okay, we are going to have to forego buying my Bentleys and all that and everything else that shows apparent wealth tisina zvedu, because that's another thing. I think the discussion will actually get to be very long when we start asking about us buying £1 million vehicles and stuff like that, $200,000, $300,000 vehicles, without even the servicing infrastructure in the country in reality. And we have potholes. Saka, if we are not in a place where we are committing ourselves, kuti aiwa gore rino hatisi kutengera madzimambo 300,000 mapajero or whatever else that the guys are using, taakumbotanga kuti tiise mari, whether it's pension funding or whatever funding, takuisa pa kuti develop a rival communications company inogwana kutiita kuzomita manidzi edu ese, so that we are no longer dependent on Starlink and the like. Kana pasina izvozvo, can we ever be truly sovereign? Kana kuti tirongokwereta zvevamwe, tobva tati isusu ndiso ana soko, ndiso ana mbizi, isu tisina zvedu zvacho, tiri kumhanya nekungozviti, and yet we are not really at a place where we should be proud. Munopaona sei Vamishi?
Inyaya yakaoma, because I think muZimbabwe we have got a crisis of leadership, because hatina vatungamiri. I was just reflecting, kumashure uko kune nyaya ye15 billion yakashayiwa. Apa tirikunzi tirikupiwa 350 million. Apa tine 15 billion hatinazoti yakaenda kupi. I think padhuze apa pane imwe 3 billion hatizoti yakaenda kupi. Saka capacity yekuti mari tinayo muZimbabwe irimo. But just like President imbobvunza mashure kuya kuti izvo nyangwe kuri kunzi mukanzi mapiwa mari yacho iyoyi, guarantee yekuti mari iyoyo inoshandisiwa zvekuti zvibatsire nyika mushoma. I think nyaya yange ichitaurwa nashumba yema-institutions, because hatina ma-institutions which hold our executive to account. Ingava tingati judiciary, tingati security sector, we don't have institutions that work. Up and until we have got systems or institutions that work, tinonge tisingotaura. Nyange ukatopinzira, nyange America ikatoisa 10 billion chaiyo chinzi iende muhealth sector, munongoramba musina maparacetamol, but tine maBentley muroad.
Kana iri nyaya yekuti mari ikauya inodyiwa, mari inotenga maBentley, I think that's the question that we need now to ask ourselves. How do we put in these checks and balances and these institutions, where do we start from? Because then it means that our problem is going to be forever present if we can't even be trusted to hold even those kind of donations, however they come or whatever whoever is bringing them. Saka katine problem hombe, we have a big problem. You know what I mean?
Izvi kana tichitaura to call a spade chirembaka, izvi zvakuda kutoti titoisa nyere vanhu nyere mumusoro.
Ndakamboona umwe mujaya achitaura musi unoyu achiti hanzi chatinodzidza panyaya yestori yaDavid naGoliath chinhu chimwe chete. Hanzi pane nguva yemunamato pogoita nguva yekurova munhu nedombo. Handisi hangu kuti anga achitaurawo zvichienderana neizva. Manje makuti panofana kusvika munhu nyere munopera mabhulezi kava anhu acho vagoti kuwanda.
Amene ndishumba vanofunga kuti kudii?
Vanofunga kuti ino inguva yemunamato here naishumba kana kuti yangu yematombo.
Sorry, pane paita waita jealous wekubasa wari kundifonera. Let me just sort it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hanzi inguva yerekeni here kana kuti inguva yemunamato.
Kana ndimiwo imimi chiremba kuti munhu uri kukoniwa basa anditi then obva auya kwauriwo kuti inini ndiri kutoextenda contract yangu inini nekuti handina kupedza basa rangu.
Obva vabvunza kuti saka ndwanga uchita ripi?
Kuti wakamupa ndima yekutimba mugadheni, kuti contract yako uri kutimba mugadheni kusvika apo contract yobva yapera, time yapera uyo wati aiwa ndiri kuextenda contract because handina kupedza kutimba mugadheni.
Right. Chinonesa ndechekuti dzimwe nguva paifana kuwana mumwe munhu aigona kunge yakauya pakati apa oti ndaona kuti makagarira badza magara chaizvo hapana chamati maita mid term sezvoita paaona kune dzimwe nyika takanzwa kuti vanotarisa the first 100 days voita evaluation yeeffectiveness yemunhu kuti kubva patakakupai badza iri munenge musati matanga kusakura even though maane mazuva 100 muri pabadza muri kufunga zvokutanga here kana kuti hamusi kutanga? In other words, zvamamitaura zvegovernance and the controls, it's important nekuti tinofanira kukwanisa kuwana way yekuti tibvunzane pasina kutyisidzirana kana kuti kuita anything like that, tichibvunzana kuti aiwa ndima iyi makasoitanga kudhara, zvino tinenge tichiri kuona kuti hamusati matombodyara anything nekuti hamusati matombotanga kana kusakura kwacho kuti tibvise mawidzi mozotanga kudyara. It can be a conversation inofanira kuitwa. Saka tichiti zvichida zvinoda kuitwa ndezvekuti patinopa contract tinofanira kuita build in mucontract imomo kuti tichapota tichiuya tichibvunzana kuti kana masvika apa tichabvunza kuti makapinda muchiti mi munorima stereki, zvino hamusati matombotanga kana kurima ende badza rakutoita ngura. We must get that level of maturity senyika yekubvunzana kuti kwete kuzomirira kuti kana munhu akunopedza kwakumapeto ndopata kutanga kuti munhu akuda kuchidzingwa. Ngativhunzei, there must be a way we can build in that kind of scrutiny in the systems taught.
Amene shumba window ere.
Ndazoita call.
Yeah, penge pane mubvundo wanga uchibvunzwa na chiremba kuti izvo hanzi pane mumwe muchinda aitaura kuti pane mubhaibheri mune nyaya yekuti pane pamwe panoda munamata poita pamwe panoda kukandirana matombo. Saka hanzi nyaya yedu yekuti tinoda kuti tine crisis of leadership, saka chatakuda toda kunegotiate here kana kuti takuda zverekeni.
It's difficult because ndopene nchitaura nyaya yestatecraft kuti if you understand the statecraft unoziva kuti one chinhu chinonzi government. First of all, you want to understand what is a government. The main purpose of a government, if you read Machiavelli, is the government has got a monopoly of violence. Saka zvinhu zvese zvetinoiswa tichiswa muforo, it's the government telling us what to do. If we don't do, there's a punishment related to what we not do. So if the government now doesn't do what it's supposed to do, then you are in big trouble. So this is now what's evident across all those countries where you find things don't work, because the people who have taken charge really doesn't understand what statecraft is all about, what building a nation is all about. So when we talk of building a nation, we need to go to the basics to say, we are representing these people. What is it that we need to do to change the direction of our country from where it is now to where we want it to be? And when you are defining all those problems, you are saying, where do we want to be? We want a country that has got energy. At any time. I think some of us have been in the UK for a long time. There's not one day you would say, why is that? It's because there's planning to say, there are people who sit down to say, we want this country to be energy independent. It should not struggle for energy. And then they put things in place that made sure people who are responsible for bringing in energy, distributing energy, they are accountable. And that system has got no favors. If you don't do your job, you are out of the door. So these are the institutions we need to build. They've got no fear or favor. So it doesn't matter what political system we have. China is a one-party state. Vietnam is a one-party state. But there are certain things they've built institutions that doesn't have fear or favor. If you do things wrong, Kunana Vietnam, if you do corruption in China, you go into the firing squad or you are hanged. If you build my bridge, anopanyika, mabazi achifamba pamsoro, you are going to be hanged in China. That's the level of accountability. And when I talk to my colleagues, especially like you guys, I always quote this example because initially, even me, I used to think this country was built on democracy. But I realized that China ndizo zvakashape mentality or psychology of the people in the Western world. Because I was reading the history of the Bank of England. One not across the road from the Bank of England where the gallows. Why took a short as a penny chairo? Kana £1, you would go to be hanged across the road, and your colleagues would see you getting hanged. So that brought that level of accountability, and one where say they are attuned to that kind of thinking. You have changed the psychology of the people. Zimbabweans per se, we like kudzidza and it, but it came as a vision of one man who made sure that after independence everyone go to school, and from that it went into our DNA. kuti mwana anofanirwa kudzidza, tinofanirwa kudzidza. And now we don't even give so much sort of that credit to that man. He had his faults. I don't dispute that. But when it comes to education, he achieved a lot than we give him credit for. So those are the things that we are talking about. Let's build institutions that function. Let's build institutions that hold people to account. But how to get there, it's a collective coming together of us as Zimbabweans and sit down to say, how do we build such kind of institutions?
I think, yeah, the question that we have really is that, can these institutions be built on the present structures? In other words, what I'm saying is, can we trust that to the present office bearers? And yet,
no, not at all.
And also,
not at all. You know, you need to now uproot the root and the branch to start all over again. Because right now, the system we have, tell me, like, what's the qualification that is needed for an MP?
2 million.
For someone to run for office as an MP, a councillor. We're not looking at any sort of form of qualification. Go to China. China, China, the way it functions is because from thousands of years ago, China has had a bureaucratic system that is unrivaled of any in the world. Since, I think, before Christ, in the BC era, China has had entrance exams for their bureaucracy. If you want to run, to do anything in the public office, there's a state entrance exam that you have to sit down and pass. And it's highly competitive for you to work in the government in China. So that's what you need to say. You're not just bringing every Jack and Jill to say, oh, just sit here, here's your chair, and you start. Because those people, they don't understand. So it should be a rigorous system, especially because we trust. You know, our problem is we are putting people in charge of our lives who don't even know what they are in office to do. Yet, you are wasvika pa-airport kuti uyu haana kumbodhiraivha ndege uyu. But anokusvitsa iko perfect. You probably said, no, thank you, I'm going home.
Right.
Shumba, you are right.
Shumba. Not just for the purpose of our viewers. Take us back. Your where did our civil servant go wrong? Because I think we inherited a very robust civil service system and the recruitment, as you are saying.
No, it doesn't. Where we went wrong is not having a national vision, right? Because the civil service is shaped by the leadership that is in charge to say, this is where we want to go. This is where you see when Singapore, Nana Lee Kuan Yew, when he gets into office, he defines where could Singapore iri papa tukuda kusvika uku, and you carry the whole nation with that vision. You explain the vision to your people. This is what we want to do, and this is what we aim to achieve. And for us to achieve, we're going to do A, B, C, D. You give a flow chart of what you aim to do. Right? So this is where it lacks now, because when you have that vision, you will need people who deliver it. And the people who should deliver it, they should have the qualifications to do so.
Yeah, and I think that is a bit of a, perhaps here you are right in highlighting the issue of apana accountability, simply because whether it is in the office or whatever, there are no questions that are being asked of them. You know, in a mature democracy, people will say, we want to see what your manifesto looks like. So in the end, if we are not careful, we recycle politicians. Even people who just want to get into power simply because they think it's their turn, but not because they have a plan. This is where things have been going wrong, and this is what our alternative view is. They don't, and our people are not mature enough to be asking the right questions. Right? Okay, magetsi ari kudhinguka every day. Imimi tikakupai basa iri rekuti mutitonge. Muchaita sei? We want well-costed discussion. We want plans that are credible. Muchaita sei in order to make sure that magetsi edu haasi kudhinguka every day. Because what we are then, if we don't have the answers to those questions, the basic questions, we are going to have my politicians just a different face and a different name, but the same problems. Vanhu vachingonokora, vachipfuma, vachitenga maBentley, but my problems edu asingaperi. Saka we need to have those mature conversations. And if some things we will not have a ready answer. For instance, there is investment that needs to take years for it to start to bear fruit. And if people are honest, we're not going to tell, right, guys, we have this situation which is going to take X amount. And if it's our GDP, so, and the money that we have is disposable is X amount of money, which means this investment will take us well into half our term of office before you start to see any results of it. So that must be sort of agreed. Okay, but they are only going to take us halfway. And then the next guy must take over from where they have left and then move us forward. Some of the development we're seeing in these nations has taken many, many years to come about. For instance, if you look at even if you look at forestry in Zimbabwe, you look at miti harvest like hardwood, which was put in place 50 years ago. And is now building a yield to the grandchildren or great-grandchildren of the people of Vakajgara. There's that saying, a mature man is one who plant trees that he will never sit under.
Exactly.
But I think short-term vision, it's okay. Not looking at the generations that are to come. So we have underinvestment, which is being shown now, but which started maybe 20 years ago.
You saw what you reap what you sow, basically. So what you find is we are reaping the results of this underinvestment. We are reaping the thing of not putting any competent people to do the job. So as a result, we keep on going through that same, and then we marry ourselves to this beggar mentality whereby we are always thanking someone for giving us something, yet that's something we have because we like to plan. It's like we had those sanctions which really took a toll on Zimbabwe. But that's not the only hit on the Zimbabwean economy. I always say, if you go back, there are a lot of things that have taken a hit on Zimbabwean economy, and we have not even sat down because we are supposed to learn from our history to say we had ISAP. We were supposed to learn what went wrong on ISAP. What are our lessons so that if ever we are prescribed this animal, we know how to mitigate the effects or we know how to deny it. And then we had the HIV. Did we do enough to protect our population from the devastation that followed? And be honest about it and hold people to responsible in a way. Because this is what you see in these Western countries to say, I think there were blood transfusions that were done years back that put people into problems. They've learned from it. That's why now, if you go and donate blood, it goes through all these kind of tests. Because they've learned that there were blood products that came to America that infected a whole lot of people in the UK. Because there was no proper screening done. So the same with the HIV. We were supposed, as Zimbabweans, to sit down and say, where did this animal come from? Did we do enough to protect our people from it? And what are we doing now? Shall we continue with this beggar mentality of always looking for ARVs from other nations? Can we develop an industry to make these drugs for ourselves?
Yeah.
Because
And you
it's
touched
not
it-
going to stop with HIV. It's going to be another disease again. You are relying on other people to be helping you out. And you become to have this reliance syndrome, which doesn't help you in progressing as a nation.
You touched on the issue, Kuti, even when we had sanctions. One of my sanctions where we could have used them to evaluate our
Yeah.
own preparedness as a country to meet our own needs. Because what it means is that if we are being barred from buying things or trading with other nations, then we have to look inward. Saka, we could have used those sanctions to say, guys, let's identify where we have got weaknesses, or particularly on essential things. It doesn't do well for a country to have to import even matches in a tsono from another country. These things we should be able to do by ourselves. Kuti vanhu vari kutenga mukaka kirimora kubva ku-South Africa is a bad, it's an indictment on the way we are running things. We should have looked at those things as use them as just like Smith did. Remember, kuti pakati pa UDI they started looking at inward because there was pressure from especially from the UK. Kuti takukupanishai, and they developed certain things. They developed certain industries to curb that. And that is where that's where we need to be. Yeah, we need to have mitigated that by developing our own industries. And it would have also meant we don't have as much of an issue around the strength of our currency being at the mercy of others. You are a net importer of everything. It's not a good financial position or economic position for a country.
I've spoken to Misha before about my sanctions. Kuti, we knew we wanted to take our land. Our lack of planning is at the heart of our demise or our failure, because we lack planning in building institutions, in strategic planning. We knew we wanted to take our land and we're gonna get a blowback from it. And the first thing that you do is, by getting your land, it's an act of war. You are declaring war on a certain people. What are they going to do in retaliation? This is strategic thinking. What are they going to do? They're going to attack your currency. They're going to blacklist you from traveling the world. They're going to blacklist you from accessing world markets. So what are we going to do in retaliation or as a strategic thinker? This is when I talk to people in Zimbabwe, I say collectively, as we could say the academic elite in Zimbabwe have completely failed as well, as much as we blame the government, because it seems like most of the time we regurgitate education, but we don't put it into practice and even innovate around it. So what I mean by that is, when we had all this, we had in the horizon all these sanctions looming because of what we were going to do. Did we plan for it? Because for me, the moment we took our land, and just when we took our land and we started getting blowback, attack on our currency, that's when we were suddenly, our strategy was going to be, let's anchor our currency to gold. We've got plenty of the stuff under our feet. We start mining the gold, it's going to reserve, it's backing the currency.
The currency.
Yeah. That way, people's pensions would not have been wiped. The whole economy could not have collapsed and go into hyperinflation like we did, because we would have planned for that eventuality. But lack of planning is what always you end up in a big mess.
Right.
Yes, and you mentioned education and the failure of the educated elite in terms of bringing in solutions. But I also think, Kuti, education, it depends on the type of education that people are getting foot. Because we may end up having a situation where some people have got PhDs and all that, but they are not self-thinkers. You have to have
exactly.
a certain type of thinking, because certain education can enslave you to titles, but it doesn't open your eyes to finding solutions to problems. You know, this is sometimes a disconnect, because you've got some people who crammed their way into degrees and all that and everything else, but they have not become independent thinkers to the point where they can apply that education. It's not applied education. Saka, endo saka uchizoona kuti munhu ane PhD seizvozvi, but arikufamba nekola yakamenyeka. Ane PhD in economics. Arikufamba nenyatera nekola yakamenyeka. Why is it that education is not helping him? Because akangokrema mabhuku. And he's not a self-thinker, and he cannot apply even kuti atofunga kuti better kuti nditengese madomasi, nditengewo bhutsu, ndozodzokera hangu kuclass ndonoticha. But so sometimes we have that, and the quality of education that we have does not challenge.
Exactly.
It doesn't challenge us to become innovative in terms of our approach to life. Sorry, did you want to say something, Amish?
Yeah, we need to be winding down because of our time. I wanted to pose this question because this I think the central thing that has been going around is accountability, institutions, and I think we all agreed we cannot be. This horse that we have is not going to lead us to anything that is different. Given the political environment that we have in Zimbabwe, do you think we have got people who can rise to the occasion of taking Zimbabwe to the next level? In just a few minutes, Doctor, you will have an opportunity, and Shumba will have an opportunity, then we close this broadcast.
I think in terms of individuals, there are some individuals in the country who can help us. But I also think that we have systems that are set up so that people are becoming just like a hedge, they're all the same, or they end up. Saka, once people are able to break free from certain autocratic systems that are in place, certain, shall we say, people belong to a party, and the party has a way of thinking, and then that way of thinking can color everybody, and then you end up having no solutions that are coming out. And you are just exchanging individuals and faces. Even when you appear to have new faces, you have old systems and old ways of thinking. Then there will be no solution that comes from that. I think we need to have people who are brave enough to challenge the status quo, wherever they come from. And these people must come up with genuinely new ways of tackling old problems. That is the only way we can sort of move forward. We have many individuals, but the problem is, I think sometimes we are equating bravery with intelligence. There are some very brave people, but they have no common sense. But they end up being the ones that are given the positions. But in reality, we need to get to a place where we can start to look for solution bearers, not necessarily the loudest mouths in the room.
Thank you very much. Shumba.
I totally agree, because I think this is our problem of we look at charisma, but we don't really look at substance. And we have taken, that's why for me, I think before I was about to finish my point and I got cut off, to say we need a new political system. And I've always advocated for a one-party state system, not really with the party that is in power now. Because that's where people who start thinking, I'm advocating for the administration that is in there. No, a totally new thing. Why am I suggesting that? We need to remove the political cycle. These 5-year terms don't work, guys. I'm being honest. If you want to build something that lasts, the 5-year terms won't work. because always people are in the gear of going to elections. You need to remove that political cycle because people don't eat elections. Yeah. So what we need is we can start doing elections maybe after 20, 30 years. But for the meantime, you present a vision to say for the next 30 years, we're not going to touch elections. All we're going to concentrate is the people who are in office are the right people. And you have a way of sort of moving them around so that they don't claim ownership to those offices. But the political cycle has got to go for the expedience of building things that last. So for us to have a healthcare system that works, that is not subject to the political cycle, for us to have an education system that works, a healthcare that works, an infrastructure program that works. And one thing that I've always dreamed of or suggested, we have got a high unemployment rate. We are a small country. We can start a nationwide state works of rebuilding the infrastructure using our own people. You train our people. All these countries have done it. Even the UK, after emerging from the war, they went onto this state building. Now they talk of capitalism and all that, but the basis on which they built the countries was not based on capitalist principles. They had to rebuild the country first and then let private enterprise thrive after that. You're talking of America doing the same. After the Great Depression of 1929, America, they had a New Deal program where the government was the main employer for people, building dams, building infrastructure. So we need a Zimbabwe with a small young population. I think we should embark on a national program. The advantages of it is all these young people will be introduced to work. Somewhere we have got people who have not worked who are in their 50s. You cannot build a last economy when you don't take seriously that level of unemployment and people are not being employed up to that age. So it's time for us to really revise how we look at politics, how we look at our economics, and then hopefully we bring together in that one-part state system of mine, you bring sharp brains who really who can move the country forward. You have your debates, you have your different visions, you debate them and adopt a sort of a strategy of where you want the country to go, and you bring people on board to share in that vision. You bring the nation together to share in that vision. I think that will be my conclusion.
Thank you very much. Tabvatsikwa na mamoyo vambenga vatiza pesa apa ende zvese zvetendichitaura vange vasimo, but I may just want to just give some of the key things that have been said in this important broadcast. I think when we started, our topic was foreign aid and sovereignty, triggered by the offer from the US money in exchange for our health data, and I think there were some discussion about the pros because our people are dying, and why don't we get it and we use it to help our people. I think the central then question was, how can we trust these people who have misused the money in the past, and also the value of our data. And I think one thing that kept to my mind, contribution from Shumba, is we may use the money to buy paracetamol today, but we are not solving the problem, because tomorrow our people are going to suffer again, and the money is gone. We've already exchanged our data for it. What are we going to do? Then the discussion then went in further into about the governance. Is our do we have the right institutions in place, and are we using our resources right? A lot of discussion, and then the final question that I then posed is, given our political system, do we have people that can replace the current ruling party? And I think we all agreed there are individuals out there who have got the capacity and capability to do so, but I think people are not coordinated. We have got brave people who may not be very competent, and but what we need, and I think then Shumba came up with this one-party state system where we create one political system where people will be then voted into offices based on their competence, which is almost similar to what used to be in Uganda, I think, at some point. So, Mamoyo, if you can just give us any of your contribution of your choice before we close the broadcast.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I hope am I audible? I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sorry, Atina Magetsi here back at home. That's why my screen is dark.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think I would like to comment on the issue whereby our president ED turned down the offer that the Trump and the Americans that were offering. For me, I think I understand it could Africa to a certain extent. They feel like there is a need actually that to move away from colonization. Africa wants to stand on its own. Africa now needs to not to be taken as a continent that must be only that is receiving, but it also wants to be recognized on its own. So I think since we've seen Kuti, Zimbabwe, Zambia also rejected them offer, then there was also a post whereby the president of Botswana also turned down the invite to the White House. So I think they are just trying to send that message, Kuti. They now want they don't want to be given terms to be detected. They also want to negotiate and have an upper hand on the table, because Africa now realizes, Kuti, they are also worth it, and they can actually be go back and be the bread basket in the world when their resources are managed properly. So I think for Emerson, when I look at it from that point of view, he was correct to reject the offer, but he was not supposed to reject it outrightly, like to just cut them off. Could I can't do this with you. I think you should have negotiated better terms whereby we'll also benefit in the meantime Chichi developer, because you cannot refuse outrightly. Could I don't want this, because as we speak right now, me and you, we know Kuti Zimbabwe haina capacity to maintain its health sector, haina capacity to make sure that their citizens are covered. Like the economy, iyo economy yacho aitovhumi kuti iwe kuti if you are in Zimbabwe right now, in Zimbabwe hapana munhu ane health policy. The only policy in Zimbabwe that people have is a funeral policy. That's what people are preparing for. Hapana munhu ane health policy yekuti inini I'm putting mari aside for me kuti ndiende kunorapwa. No. The only thing that is policy that is existing in Zimbabweans are preparing for is only the policy, because they now don't believe the health sector. If you get sick, there is hope for you. You can still go to hospital, can still be maintained while you are sick. No, Zimbabweans have accepted kuti when you get sick, then you just have to prepare kuti your send off will just be dignified. That's my view in that aspect. So I think the president should have negotiated better terms there, because right now, let's say America, for example, in Zimbabwe has got statistics. I think it's 1.2 million people that are surviving on HIV. So you see, let's say America, they just also cut off the supply. What is going to happen to those people? Nona. So there are also other medications that are produced there. Nona. Unless if they have a plan. Kuti, okay, if they refuse the supply from America, maybe their friends, the Chinese, will do something. I don't know. I really hope Kuti he refused this offer and a plan, because if he just refused it outrightly, just because of pride or to prove a point, then it's not going to lead anywhere. Right now we are not in a state. If only it was South Africa, we are not in a state to Tirambe. You should have negotiated better terms, because obviously we have the minerals. America, we have all the minerals that they need. We can negotiate. At least they are coming with negotiation terms. In other countries, America does not negotiate. We've seen them removing Maduro because they wanted oil there. We've seen them eliminating with this one, Gaddafi also, because they wanted something there. Right now they are busy. Right now they are busy today. I think they bombed. Is it Iran?
Iran, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So you see, Kuti, it doesn't negotiate when whatever it wants. So I think for us to be offered that negotiation table, it should have taken and spent it to our advantage. You need us, we also need you. But over that is that no, we also have an upper hand, because I know now today I was showed the president of Burkina Faso has not confirmed it's true or false, but that guy with Burkina Faso, he accepted the same offer. But is the guy where his leadership almost is similar to the one of Gaddafi, but he accepted. So I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, Kuti. But how? Because he seemed like he's someone who doesn't want to do anything to do with the West. So I think I hope Kuti have a plan in there. I think they have a plan. That's my take in that point.
Thank you very much, and you Mauya points which are very, very valuable points, and at least someone should have come with a mindset of negotiation. And I think the fact that you have been invited to a negotiating table whilst others are just being booted out, it means they see value in us. So we could have had used that opportunity to negotiate. But we are now going to close the broadcast. But stay in the back room. We'll come back and then we do a roundup to see how things went. Right. Thank you for watching, and those who are going to watch us the broadcast, please like, comment, and share, and follow our channel.